The Mustang Mach-E arrived in late 2020 after its reveal in 2019 with a strong suggestion the car would be called the Mustang Mach-1. But after there was feedback that taking the Mustang name to stick on an electric SUV was a hurdle many Ford fans thought was too much, adding Mach-1 whipped up a storm of opposition, and so the Mach-E. The car uses Ford's GE1 platform and is coded CX727, produced in Mexico and China. Similar to many world market Ford models, no US production is currently established, but CEO Jim Hackett has previously said that some US production may happen as electric vehicle production increases, although no clear plan is in place, and Ford have said the model is more profitable with current production locations. Specification is broadly split between 5 models, although some markets have special editions or more basic offerings depending on demand. The battery size, either 70 kWh or 91 kWh, dictates a limitation, with the smaller battery only offered on the select or premium models for some markets. I will note that there are slightly different battery sizes offered throughout production runs, which we'll cover in the engine section later. Although all-wheel drive dual motor is optioned on the smaller battery, above premium there is a first edition and GT specification, with the California Route 1 offered in limited markets. Most cars designate a battery size by starting the specification with standard range, or, if the larger battery, extended range. For the 2025 model year, there has been several improvements, including a heat pump to boost range. The US has increased a bluecruise range of the Mach-E, and the smaller battery capacity is increased to 72 kWh from 2024. I will note though that some of you are looking at the non-GT 2025 model's extended range will see a quoted 88 kWh battery. This is due to Ford shrinking the cell modules from 32 to 28. An 88 kWh battery pack is coded 4P90S, and the GT will continue with the larger 91 kWh battery coded 4P94S. Non-GT models with the smaller battery are quoted to still achieve the same range as before. Now, used buyers should note that in 2020 there are just a few hundred sales across Europe and the USA, and so really it's 2021 on to 22 and 23 where sales really start to ramp up. Between 22 and 23, there's actually a doubling of sales, so your best bet for a bargain is going to be 2021 because there was a lot of pressure put on those because residual values were pushed down by higher and higher sales in the years after. But for the best choice, you probably want to look in 22 and 23. That's advice for Canada, Europe and the USA. However, for Australasia and China, Ford were just not able to hit the sales target they hoped for, and so residual values are a little bit stronger than you may expect because there's just less of them on the market, meaning you may have to pay a bit more than you were hoping for. From 2023, a Mach-E Rally model moves to the top of the lineup in many countries. This was originally revealed at Goodwood in the UK as a concept car to enter production later that year, and pays tribute to Ford's long history of rally in Europe, but is unlikely to compete as the Ford Cougar is already in use. A bonus for used buyers looking at their first EV and worried about range comes from independent magazine tests in the US and Europe. Both sides of the Atlantic have either nearly matched or beaten claimed range when doing tests of battery life. I'll note the American EPA and World WLTP tests are different, and the lower range is generally from the EPA, which is the one that magazines are beating. This is rarer than some of you may think, especially in poor weather, where the Mach-E needed to be put in the worst conditions for an EV, high-speed, consistent driving with heating and auxiliary items in use, to make a notable difference from its claimed range. Cold conditions are known to sap some energy, and some of the best-known names in EVs have failed to achieve their claimed range, even in good weather, on independent tests. I will note though that these tests are generally carried out in new or nearly new cars. If in the USA, note that the NACS charge network was open to the car in 2023 and is native from 2024, with adapters needed for 2023 and earlier cars. Moving on to safety, and it's a full 5 stars from European NCAP, plus a top safety pick from IIHS in tests conducted in 2021. Now on to the common faults, but first a reminder to add a like if you find the video helpful, and if you're looking to buy a car, we now have a dedicated page on the website with a free PDF to help check a car over and a few helpful tips and products to buy to increase your chances of getting a great car and a great deal. First up were complaints by owners using Ford Pass that cars would not stop charging correctly. This was usually a software error, but could be challenging for a dealer to track the problem if intermittent. Owners faced an issue in wanting a car to stop charging at a certain percentage, like 80 or 90% overnight, but the car continuing to accept charge all night, running past the cut-off of the owner had stated to help battery longevity. First-year production owners have complaints of switchgear not functioning correctly, although fortunately most of these were warranty resolutions, but in particular you should check if a seller has left the headlights in the off position. Some owners have reported headlights stay on when the car is locked. If the switch was in auto or on, both should revert to off after the car is locked. The most common fault reported was software errors, but fortunately these were either quick to resolve over the air or resolved with dealer diagnostics, but here is where the complaints split. Those with a competent dealer brush off this issue as minor and in line with their new car experience from other manufacturers. Those with dealers that were unhelpful or just poorly trained and lacked knowledge of the Mach-E felt that this was a big problem, ruining their ownership experience, so it's worth seeking out some reviews of your local dealer, as it may be worth getting friendly with one slightly further away to avoid a headache if an issue arises. Faulty charge ports have been reported. While quite rare, this again is something that can cause an issue if a dealer doesn't diagnose it correctly first time around. Drive shafts on 2021 vehicles have been replaced under warranty on some vehicles after either reports of clicking from the front or noise from the rear, along with compromised battery performance. I should add that on the forums for the Mach-E identified 2021 cars as a Job 1 and Job 2, and by far the largest complaints are Job 1 cars. These are built until around July 2021 with a VIN lower than 43000. A quick way to check is look for the physical button next to the headlight dial that turns off traction control. If you see it, then it's a later build that appears to report less issues with build quality and general warranty faults. Some owners, again with early 2021 cars, had issues with the front storage compartment or frunk, as access options are more limited. Most cars should have received an over-the-air update to add accessibility on one of the optional ways though. I'll note as ever that faults can be as little as 0.5% of production, so look out for these issues, but don't expect them, especially if looking at later built cars. However, owner feedback is always appreciated. Next up are the recalls, and a reminder to check out the Miles Driven book for car stories and more. In 2021 there were 2 recalls. The first was due to incorrect data being sent via recall systems, the second due to wind and water leaks from panoramic sunroofs. In 2022 there were 2 more recalls, the first for windshield adhesion material that was inadequate from factory, the second due to a risk of overheating from high voltage contactors. Next up are the electric motors. I'll split the options between standard range and extended range cars, beginning with the standard range. The standard range is fitted in Select, Premium, and in some countries standard model trims, and has a 68 kilowatt battery until 2022, when it's increased to 70, and then in 2024, 72 kilowatt hours. Note that I am quoting usable battery capacity rather than total. Range is quoted at 230 miles for rear drive and 211 miles for all-wheel drive from the EPA. However, WLTP testing has 273 miles or 440 kilometers on the rear drive and 249 miles or 400 kilometers on the all-wheel drive. Power is rated at 266 brake horsepower across specifications, but charging speeds are higher on the premium models with up to 150 kilowatts instead of 115 kilowatts. The biggest complaint on this variant was software faults that were either quickly corrected or required a short dealer visit, but while I did find a few complaints of battery issues, overall, looking at the actual warranty claims from Ford, it appears that the majority of owners don't have an issue with the battery and feel that they can achieve the claim range on the US EPA standards. There were wider complaints of the original 12-volt battery, that's the regular car battery as any petrol, diesel or electric car has in case you aren't sure, but these appear to be mostly reported in 2021 and early 2022, and the replacement appears to resolve the issue. The larger battery is the extended range model with 91 and 88 kWh batteries and have a mix of power outputs that were a popular choice among new car buyers and lease companies, as some company drivers had a requirement of a minimum range that their EV could achieve. Note that 2021 and 2022 cars will be 88 kWh. The premium rear drive model is advertised with 300 miles of range from the EPA in all specifications, while all-wheel drive models get either 260 or 270 miles from the EPA. As before, WLTP figures are more optimistic, with the rear drive getting 379 miles or 610 kilometers, and the all-wheel drive either 336 miles or 540 kilometers, down to the lowest figure of 311 miles or 500 kilometers. Power is rated at 290 brake horsepower on the rear drive models, 346 brake horsepower on Premium and First Edition, and the GT gets 480 brake horsepower along with the latest GT Rally models. The HVJB, or high voltage junction box, is the widest complaint I could see, although the majority of failures appear to be reported on 2021 and 2022, and some 2023 cars. Overall, while there is no doubt that these failures did happen and were a problem for owners, for every person that went online to report the issue, a sea of owners that hadn't had an issue responded. This is an issue worth taking seriously though, and understanding the car will insist you stop immediately and then require towing away, but that severity needs to be understood in a wider picture of thousands of owners that haven't had a single issue with the battery pack. As mentioned in the recalls section, the concern of overheating the battery was known in 2020 to 2022 built models, but the recall appears to have dealt with the majority of early issues. For my part, I would say that of all the electric car guides I've done so far, the Mustang was actually the greatest challenge to get clear data on. The opinions seem to swing more widely than, say, a Polestar 2 or even a Taycan. I can't say why, but I have kept this guide a bit shorter and focused on the issues that appeared worth concentrating on if looking to buy used, and leaving out much of the opinion-based reporting as possible. Owner feedback is always very welcome, as you help those looking to buy know a real-world experience, so hopefully that will fill any gaps that I've stuck closely to facts on. For our picks, a budget buy of an extended range premium model will stand well against other car specifications in the budget and mean less of a compromise on range, plus the possibility of faster charging if you need a top up on the go and find a charger able to do so. For a top budget pick, it has to be the rally model. I remind you all of the weird and wacky EV cars that we see come and go every month, great gimmicks, lacking heritage. For Ford to reach over to their rally department and pull some of that styling to make the car just look interesting, fun and desirable is enough, and a lesson that other manufacturers hell-bent on redesigning the wheel could learn from. But you'll have to pay a premium, and the GT is hard to ignore unless you can get a good deal on the rally. As ever, all the best with your car search.